Hello and welcome to the Blood Red's Morning Bulletin. I'm joined by my fellow Liverpool.com writer Keifer to discuss the main events from last night, which was yet another clash between Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah. And unfortunately, for Mohamed Salah at least, yet another defeat at the hands of Senegal. It wasn't a great night for Salah last night, was it, Keifer?
No, not at all. Certainly not after the AFCON final. What was that, only 6 weeks ago? And I think when this draw was made, everyone kind of, after the back of that AFCON final, everyone was, drawing up as Salah's chance to get revenge, play on the big stage. We all know what a good season he's had. He would have loved to feature in the World Cup and potentially strengthen his Ballon d'Or credentials, come the end of the year. But sadly, that wasn't to be. It was a disappointing night for him. And obviously, I think everyone will have seen the footage of the penalties and the stuff with the lasers, which probably left a bit of a sour taste. And then there was even some, footage when he was coming off the pitch and, he was getting various things thrown at him. So, yeah, it wasn't, like I say, it wasn't a great night. And you just got to hope that now he can maybe use that as a bit of a motivation, coming into the last 6, 7, 8 weeks of the season and maybe think, well, if I'm not going to be featuring, in the World Cup, maybe I'm going to have to do my, Ballon d'Or talking or, contract talking here at Liverpool when there's 3 more trophies up for grabs. So it depends which way you look at it. I mean, yeah, like I say, he would have wanted to feature, but, it could be that extra bit of motivation that he needs, because obviously he hasn't been himself in maybe last month or so. I think he's struggled to come back from AFCON, certainly comparing him to that form that, we saw at the top of the season where he was just electric and, he was winning games for Liverpool left, right and centre. So, like I say, if there's one advantage maybe for Liverpool between now and the end of the season, it may be that.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point you make about him not really being back to his best since coming back from AFCON. How much do you think this defeat and particularly the penalty miss is going to affect his confidence as well?
Yeah, be interesting. I mean, we know he's not someone who lacks confidence. I don't think that's ever been a problem while he's been at Liverpool. He's missed penalties before. I think of his most recent one at Leicester. I think he's only missed a couple during his time at Liverpool. He's got a pretty immaculate record, and I think given the circumstances, as I said with the laser last night, I think anyone probably would have struggled to put a penalty away in those kind of pressures, let alone having a 6 or 7 lasers shone on your face. But like I say, I think since he's come back from AFCON, it's been 6 weeks now, and I think Mane, you could probably argue, has gone the other way. That was probably the best scenario for Liverpool, that Mane wins and he kind of gets that confidence boost that he needs. But yeah, Salah's struggled. I don't know if that's fatigue, because we know how much extra time Egypt played during the tournament, and maybe that's catching up with him. Salah's not exactly a player who's going to go to the manager and say, "Oh, look, I'm tired," or whatever. He's got that winner's mentality, which is fantastic, but. It's maybe all starting to catch up with him now, and with there being a game every 3 days, it's between now and the end of the season, it is going to be manic. We've just got to hope that maybe there is some games. I'm looking at the Benfica second leg. I'm thinking if Liverpool can get it done over in Lisbon, then there's a chance to rest him there. He's got probably 6 days off between 2 Premier League ties. So you kind of have to start maybe prioritising it until he's kind of at his peak of his powers once again.
I will say, before any Egyptian fans come on here, that probably missing that penalty had a bit more magnitude to it than his previous penalty misses for Liverpool. But yeah, I'm sure he will bounce back. I think, like you mentioned, the scenario for Liverpool was probably the last thing they would have wanted, with the game going to extra time again in that playoff with Senegal and Egypt. So yet more minutes for Salah and Mane, an extra half an hour than Liverpool would have liked. How much of that fatigue do you think going to affect Liverpool heading into Watford, which is the early kickoff on Saturday?
Yeah, well, it's such a quick turnaround, isn't it? Like you say, we're playing the early game, 12:30 against Watford, and it's Mane, he probably won't feel that tiredness. Certainly not. I don't imagine the immediate aftermath. He'll probably just be ecstatic and delighted. I think it's only their third time they qualify for the World Cup. So this is the first time they've done it back to back as well. So it's a huge achievement for Mane, and especially off the back of winning that AFCON title. So I don't think for Salah, I don't think that'll be a problem, but maybe for Mane, I don't think for Mane it'll be a problem. I think for Salah, he'll probably, maybe more mentally draining than actually physically draining. Obviously, he's a top athlete and all that, and he's probably played less games, but he's played 2 games this week. That's probably less than he would have played over a 2-week period with Liverpool. So he's probably had some kind of rest, but it's more kind of the magnitude of those games. They've been, probably the 2 biggest games you can play in international football outside of a major tournament. So you've got to hope that it doesn't affect them too much. I mean, as well, Diaz, he played last night in South America for Colombia. So you're even looking at him and thinking, well, he's got a long journey back, so Salah and Mane. So, it's only Jota who's really played on mainland Europe. So it is such a tight turnaround. It's probably the one time you don't want to be playing before City. You'd probably rather, have a Sunday slot or a late Saturday slot. But, fingers crossed, it's not say it's Watford, but you'd hope that Liverpool would have enough in reserve to kind of get over the line, even if, they aren't, back to their fluid best, which is normally the case with the international break. I think teams kind of get over the line as, it's always a bit of a break, isn't it? And, it's not really one where you dissect the performance. If you just get over the line and move kind of thing, move on to Lisbon.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned Diaz and Jota. I mean, Diaz didn't play any playoffs, but I think those final few games certainly probably felt like playoffs for Colombia, considering they had to get both victories in order to qualify. In the end, even that wasn't enough. Whereas with Jota, again, 2 very high intensity games playing for Portugal in the playoffs. So Liverpool will certainly hope in the next few days they can recuperate and rejuvenate themselves and be ready for Watford. I mean, maybe it's almost a certainty then that Roberto Firmino will start, considering he's had a big layoff.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what you've got a squad there for, isn't it? It's what we kind of all dreamed of, having options. And, you've got 5 forwards now who are, all very good options and would get into a decent amount of Premier League sides, and obviously Firmino's had a stop-start season. Obviously wasn't included in the Brazil squad, so he's had some time to recuperate, probably look after himself. And, we have seen over the past couple of weeks that maybe he has been returning to his best. Certainly not the heights that he once hit at Liverpool. I'm thinking 17, 18, but he's affecting games more. He's popping off, and maybe it's that cameo role that's starting to suit him more. So, having that break and maybe being able to play against a team like Watford, who are probably going to sit back and be a bit of something of a low block, it might be Firmino's movement and creativity and dropping deep that you probably look for. So yeah, it's exactly what Jurgen Klopp will be looking at and thinking. That's exactly why he's kept 5 forwards, exactly why he signed Diaz in January, to kind of have those options at his disposal. And that's exactly what's going to be the difference maker. We've seen it so many times with City in the past, where they're able to bring in a Mahrez, a Grealish, a Foden, or Bernardo Silva, a Sterling. I mean, the list is scary, isn't it? So it's nice for Liverpool to kind of boast those options of their own for once.
Yeah, and I mean as well with Watford, Klopp will probably have one eye on Benfica as well, considering that's a tough tie, and that's going to be away from home as well. So, and then obviously City after that in just a week's time. So, or very important week ahead for Liverpool, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I don't want to label it as season defining because you don't want to put too much pressure on that game at the Etihad, but it does feel like whoever does kind of take the initiative in that game is going to probably be storming towards the title. They're going to have the momentum. It's like at the minute, obviously City are a point ahead, but you could make a good case that you'd rather be in Liverpool's camp with the kind of the way the results have gone over the past 6 weeks. So yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting. Like you say, you've got that trip to Benfica and on Tuesday. I mean, City have got Burnley on Saturday afternoon, which is we know how difficult it can be to play at Burnley. They gave us a difficult game only a couple of weeks ago. So there's even a chance that Liverpool could still be top of the table come Saturday night. But yeah, that game against City, it does feel like the one that is going to have the biggest say between now and the end of the season. I'm sure there'll be a few twists and turns, but I just can't see anything else but that. I mean, Liverpool's running isn't the nicest. They've got United and Everton, Tottenham as well. Obviously City. I think City's is so-called maybe easier on paper, but if you can get that kind of, even if you can just remain unbeaten and keep it at a point, for the end of the season, then it's kind of like it's City's to lose almost, and see how they'll deal with that pressure, especially after, like I say, a couple of far from ideal results over the past kind of 6 weeks, which have, allowed Liverpool to kind of sneak back into contention. And, I don't think anyone would have expected this game at the Etihad to mean so much only a couple of weeks ago when it was, looking at 12, 13, 14 points behind City. So, it's just, you just got to seize the opportunity and kind of seize the moment. And yeah, it's certainly going to be not one to be missed.
Yeah, exciting times ahead. And I think I speak for all Liverpool fans that they'll be hoping Diogo Jota and Sadio Mane come back with even more confidence after qualifying for the World Cup. And then on the other hand, Diaz and Salah return with extra motivation to do even better and sort of put things right.
Yeah.
That about wraps it up for today's podcast, Morning Bulletin, rather. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Keifer, for joining me. And make sure you check out the rest of the Blood Red content going out today and all the written content on Liverpool.com.